Urban Meyer's streak of not having lost a single Big Ten regular season game in his 3-year stint at Ohio State. So couple of pretty big streaks on the line.
Tell you, man, all of this stuff that we're talking about, I think about it and I multiply it by 1,000,000, which is what everybody is saying nationwide, worldwide, in Columbus, everywhere. Every one of these kids, these coaches, you got to think they're all hearing and thinking the same stuff. It's so hard. That's where the X factor in sports comes in, to get everybody past that, because I feel like us sitting here a couple weeks ago, I'm surprised we haven't thrown out the trap game phrase yet, because that's what it feels like when you're talking about all the reasons why there isn't a chance in the world for this other team so-and-so to win this game, and then you come back on Monday and go, well, how the hell did that happen over the weekend? And that's the only thing you got to worry about, is it's got to be, it's so hard when it's not just us, like I said, but it's 1,000,000 times more, and everybody's right there. And your people at Thanksgiving, you're going to spend, your Thanksgiving dinner from people going, yeah, man, you're going to roll the Wolverines by 40 points and so on and so forth. Coaching staff has their work cut out for them, keeping everybody focused, not only on a holiday week, which is hard enough, and I know you're thinking, well, Michigan week shouldn't be hard. Traditionally, it wouldn't, but you wonder if the lack of edge on this throws it in there. Although, like I said the other day, if I'm the Wolverines, this is the Buckeye Bowl. Like you said, ending perfect seasons, ending undefeated seasons, ending championship hopes. That's all I've got left. Even if I'm not fighting for Brady Hoke, I'm fighting for me and my last game, whatever it is. I'm going out ruining the Buckeyes season if I'm the Wolverines, and that negative motivation is what the Buckeyes have to watch out for. It's the Buckeye Bowl for the Wolverines, man.
Yeah, no doubt. There have been several times when the Buckeyes are having a down year. It's said so many times. It's a cliche that you can salvage your season in this game this Saturday. I mean, you've had a miserable year. People talking bad about you. Your coach is a lame duck. He's 100% certain to be fired after the season. And the season has been a failure, but you can salvage it. You can save it if you can win this game. Now, you're going to go out and sometimes the first few hits or the first couple series of the game will sort of settle people down and take all that upset talk out of them, and talent will eventually determine who wins the game. That along with which coaching staff does the better job. If that's the determining factor, then Ohio State's going to win this game, because not only do they have better talent, but I think most people would agree they have better coaches. And that's why Michigan's making a change here at the end of the year. But for sure, the kids, and the game is played by the kids, by those 18 to 22-year-olds out there who are always unpredictable and subject to emotion and crowd reaction and everything else that goes into it. That's why they play the games on the field instead of inside of flat screen TVs.
That's it, and that is it. That's why they play them on the field. It'll be interesting to see. I'm with you. I think the Buckeyes take care. As long as they show up ready to play, I don't think there's anything Michigan can do to make sure that the Buckeyes don't win this game. Now, if there's any change in either of those variables, then that thing can definitely end up very differently. While we're talking Buckeyes, real quick, some news that I don't want to say really unexpected. A lot of people, I think, kind of knew where the Noah Spence thing was going. He tried to get himself reinstated, but he was declared permanently ineligible yesterday after the second failed drug test this season, and he is now officially done with his Ohio State career, and he will, I guess, be attempting to get himself ready for the NFL draft or combine or whatever the next step is for him. But that will be the official end of Noah Spence with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it is, and that's too bad. One thing you hope for is that Noah Spence gets his act together and gets his life turned around. There are indications that he's done that, but there are also, of late, and I just read this morning, an indication that maybe that might not quite be the case. Noah Spence, of course, was tested positive for ecstasy twice, and the Big Ten rule is the second offense is a lifetime ban. That is what the Buckeyes were appealing with the Big Ten officials. Understand this is not the NCAA. This is appealing to the Big Ten office for him to be reinstated. And their case was built around the fact that Noah Spence had, taken, responsible action, that he went through a rehab type regimen, and that he had turned his life around, and he had acknowledged that he was addicted to ecstasy. I'm saying. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about ecstasy. I know it's considered, some people think wrongly, as a performance-enhancing drug because I believe it contains some amphetamine. But beyond that, I can't imagine. It's a recreational drug as far as I understand,
yes.
not one that athletes use to improve performance. So maybe the Big Ten needs to take a look at that. But the bottom line is that Spence did have two positive tests, and my understanding too is, Jerry, that this most recent test, he took a test last week. He did not test positive, but he did test for having used a masking agent, and that is in most testing regimens considered to be a positive test. If you're found to have taken any kind of an agent that is used to mask the presence of drugs in your system. So that is disappointing, certainly, after all this time, and OSU has been with Spence and with his family, his father, and in trying to get this thing done and appeal. But if the kid has been using something since, or even if it's just smoking pot or whatever, he used reportedly used a masking agent, and that came up in this most recent test just within the last week. And the Big Ten felt they had no choice but to uphold their punishment of lifetime ban. And so, yes, there is every expectation that Spence will now go into the NFL draft. I'm certain he will be drafted unless teams have that much of a concern about character issues or whatever, because he certainly has the physical ability to play at the next level. And I'm told too that he was planning to do that anyway, that he was planning to go pro after this season. Wanted to get back, be reinstated maybe for this week's game, at the very least for the Big Ten championship game, possible bowl game, but that his intention was to go pro after this season anyway. So he's just going to go ahead and do that, most people think, and start getting ready for the draft, and chances are he will be drafted.
Man, I'll tell you, I'm going to have to look into that. I know I'm pretty, I think, conscious about the performance-enhancing stuff. Now, I've heard of using GHB as a PED because GHB is a substance very similar to ecstasy as far as having the feel-good party side effects and all of that, and getting amorous with your woman, all those things that come with that. But it's also a bodybuilding drug as well because of what it unlocks. Man, ecstasy, if people are using that as a PED, I guess I could see what you're saying with the amphetamines. But if people don't know, there's several hard drugs that make up the cocktail that becomes ecstasy. That's you're doing more harm than good, in my opinion. So if that's the case, not that they should be doing anything, but, man, they're being miseducated. Man, they're doing more damage than good. But I agree with you. I was glad you brought up that point about the last test because I thought that was what did it. And people don't understand. It's not just a masking agent. If your test is too watered down, it's considered a failure and an attempt to cover something up. So if you even drank too much water that day, they say, well, there's a reason you did that. It's because you were trying to water your sample down here. So I have no doubt that at that point they said, you know what? We're going out of our way trying to help you here, and there's still stuff fishy. All right, we're going to wash our hands of this whole thing, and that's exactly how it ended up.
Yeah, and I think, quite possibly the OSU people who really, frankly, have already signed enough recruits for next year to replace all the graduating seniors and people who are using up all their eligibility, they're looking for roster spots because they want to add 3 or 4 new players to this recruiting class next year. I think maybe there might be people in the program that see this as silver lining sort of on that dark cloud because opens up a spot on the roster and they can surely use it with some of the blue chip recruits that they're still chasing.
You got that right. You're listening to the Sports Fix. J-Rock and Dan Wismar here. We were just doing a little Buckeyes and Michigan talk for the big game coming up this week. There's a Browns game coming up this week, too. Before I let you go, talk a little bit about what's going on there. We've seen some of this. You and I mentioned we were on the air when the story started surfacing Monday, all the hubbub with Johnny Manziel. I was laughing yesterday. I said, now I have not seen, a lot of times you get different stories, but there could not be 2 more divergent accounts of what happened than the police reports and the agent story of what happened the other night. Hey, I don't even care. Just show me a video so we can just see what happened and be done with it. I'm not even going to guess about things I don't know, but I get a kick out of how different the 2 stories were right off the bat, and the fact that I mentioned it, you mentioned it, we mentioned it, anybody's talking about it, it's been in the news, it's been in the newspaper. Those are all the problems with this whole thing. You can say, whether you think it's Johnny's fault or not, that we're having these conversations about a guy that doesn't even play in the middle of a playoff race the night before an out-of-town big game. Those are all issues that have to concern the Browns.
Yeah, I think you're right. And to be honest with you, Jerry, I haven't paid a lot of attention the last couple of days to it. I did hear
what it is.
The agent and some people talking about, hey, it wasn't his posse, it wasn't his entourage, it was his roommate. He's with
one person.
Guy there.
According to them, it's a guy. A guy.
And I don't know what difference really that made. It depends on is Johnny on one guy or is it Johnny on a bunch of people that were functioning as bodyguards, crowd control, or whatever. What kind of crowd could there have been at 2:30 in the morning anyway? But as we said the other day, they had to be concerned about the time of day that this happened. And but again, I think more than anything else, it's the potential distraction of a backup quarterback being the story when the team is in a playoff chase and going to play an important football game. So I think that's got to be the thing that concerns everyone. I'm not talking about national media because all they're concerned about is people will tune in, flip the channel, stick around through the commercial if they see that something about Johnny Manziel is coming up after the break. So that's their concern, ratings and clicks and page views on the internet. But obviously the concern for the Browns front office has to be keep the focus on Buffalo, on our game, on our season, on our playoff hunt, and this can do nothing but distract from it.
No, absolutely, brother. I'm with it. And like you said, everything turns into a story. Even this morning, I saw the Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, going to the Browns and coming back with a story. This will not affect Manziel's playing status for the rest of the season. Well, of course not, because he doesn't have a playing status for the rest of the season. He is on standby until he is needed. So, of course, it's not going to change anything. But they made a whole article out of it where, it doesn't change anything because the guy wasn't playing. What's this going to change? Nothing. But they found a way to make a story out of that too, man. I got a kick out of it. That's why I said, forget the story. I want to see the video because I'll laugh if it's Johnny and his mom and one guy in the elevator coming back from dinner after this story is turned into, like you said, was it him and the Harlem Globetrotters in the elevator, or, did a basketball game break out in the lobby, or was it just him and his friend hanging out, just keeping their head down at 2:30 in the morning trying to get up to bed? I don't know. Very funny to see how that's going to go. But
you're right. And some slight defense of Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer and the guys that cover the team, they are in their own way trying to give the fans what they think the fans want to see, and that is any article, any information, any iota of data about Johnny Football is what they perceive the fan base is looking for and wants, and is going to click on and read. And sadly, they're probably right.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. While we're talking about quarterbacks in the Browns, I'm going to talk a minute about the one that does play on the field, Brian Hoyer. And you and I talk a bit about the local and the national perspective as here the Browns sit. And we talked Monday about last week's game and how it ended up. We don't need to get into that, but interesting because you talk about a lot, and I read too, Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback every week, and it's funny to see the difference in opinions between people, because he's very much hey man, Brian Hoyer, this is a good story, what the Browns have got going on, this is for real, man, and all of that, and then occasionally somebody, I got sent an article yesterday from one of the ESPN guys, and it was just a one guy opinion, but whatever, about how the Browns have done everything they've done in spite of Brian Hoyer being the quarterback. And I was joking a bit at the beginning of the show that anybody can take any story and any stats and write it any way that they want, as we see, because there it is right there. Two big national guys looking at the exact same situation, and one is going, wow, the Browns Browns and Brian Hoyer together have done blah, blah, blah. The other one's going, wow, the Browns have done it all in spite of this terrible, mediocre quarterback that they have. And I get a kick out of that, and how the same thing can be seen black and white by two different people.
Yeah,